Shalom, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com. It is now Hanukkah, the year 2020, and we are in the middle of so many interesting things that are happening all around the world. So tonight, we are going to talk about Hanukkah. Yawn, yawn, how boring, right? Yeah, we all know the story. Or do we? Because you know something? You want to talk about stories. Well, we better start looking at the stories that are happening around us now, because they have a very interesting relationship with the message of Hanukkah. Now, I'm going to start things off on a little quirky note. All right. By the way, you should know. All right. I have no notes. I do not prepare what I say or anything of the kind. I've been doing what I do now for over 30 years, and I've ultimately learned to just trust, as they say, to go with the flow. And whatever is going to come out, let it come out. You all know if you watch my videos, all right? I make some of the biggest bloopers. We don't stop. We don't cut. We don't edit. I don't do anything, all right? Kosher Torah means real and raw Torah, which means you get the real deal here. So, with that being said, the only thing I have in front of me here is a little piece of paper, which I copied off of, believe it or not, Wikipedia, because I want to discuss with you a very interesting statement that was made earlier this month by Professor and General Chaim Eshed, who was a brigadier general in the Israeli army. He was the head of the Israeli equivalent of NASA for many, many years. And he came out with a rather earth-shattering statement that I'm more curious as to the responses as to what he said. Pretty much what he said was nothing new to those of us, let's just be blunt, are in the know for whatever reasons that we are. He came out and made a claim that, the United States and Israel, and he didn't say, but I'll add other governments, have long had diplomatic relations. That's the correct word. He didn't use that. He just said a relationship. I'll tell you. With what we can call, for real, extraterrestrial civilizations. No, I'm not talking about the jinn, all right, and the demons and the shadim that we've discussed in prayer. I'm talking about the real guys out there, right? These are the B'nai Elohim, Genesis 6 type of guys. We know who they are. We know what they are. We've been involved with them. They've been involved with us for the longest time. And he spoke of the Galactic Federation, the United Federation of Planets. Where is Captain Kirk when we need him? All this stuff he spoke about, and says, the base on Mars and the like, that the United States government is working with this stuff, and President Trump knows about it, and rest assured others know about it, and all this stuff he said. And it's so interesting because you got to sit and ask. All right, number one, in the words of, again, I'm quoting from the Wikipedia here, Isaac Ben Israel, who's the current chairman of the Israeli Space Agency. What did he say about Eshed's comments? He said he went a little too far with what he revealed, but at the quote, he says his seriousness should not be questioned and his standing and a leader in the field remains intact. Okay? So when the Israeli equivalent of NASA comes out and makes these radical statements, and he's verified by the president, head of NASA, and no one's coming out and contradicting him, you should know. You should pay attention. What I wanted to pay attention to was how people would respond to what he said. And if you go pretty much, you Google it, you'll see all the news around the world covered it. And if you look at the video responses on YouTube, they're mostly slanderous, mocking, and offensive. All right, General Eshed said that the entities, the ETs requested don't reveal our presence. People aren't ready for it just yet. And judging from the responses to his comments, boy, it proved them correct. Now, I'll share with you a little interesting thing, which I found from the Wikipedia comment here. It was actually a quote from my friend Nick Pope. Nick Pope, of course, is a very, very famous guy. Used to work for the British, I think, defense industry. They quote him here. You should know he's a colleague of mine from Ancient Aliens. Actually, it's about, we're Hanukkah now. We're the 14th of December right now. Just about this time last month, actually, Nick, I, and others are having dinner together out in, outside of L.A. And yeah, we chat shop. No, we can't tell you. Violate confidence. What we chat about. But yeah, so I know Nick. Nick knows me, and Nick is quoted here as saying this to NBC News. Again, this is in the Wikipedia page, so you can go find it. He says, with regards to Eshet's comments, that either it's some sort of practical joke, opinion 1, or a publicity stunt to help sell his book, 2. Perhaps something has been lost in translation, 3, or someone in the know is breaking ranks, 4. Now, I found his comment to be rather curious in that what Nick knows to be true, that much I'll tell you. He puts as the last of the 4 possibilities. And remember, I'm a good old rabbi here, because that form of discussion rings familiar to me. For those of you who are my rabbinic peers and who study for rabbinic law in order to become a proper and authoritative ordained Orthodox rabbi, remember, we're pretty strict about that stuff here. You study Jewish law. You study the Shulchan Aruch of Rabbi Yosef Karo, which is the foundation of our practice today. Well, when you study the code of Rabbi Karo, I'm not talking about the other books that are called the Shulchan Aruch, Gansfried's Kitzur, or Rabbi Shneur Zalman's version of it for Lubavitch. No. I'm talking about the original, authentic Shulchan Aruch of Maran. Many a time, he will give what we call a halacha stam. This is the way it is. But in all due respect, anybody who knows anything about Jewish law knows nothing is so black and white. Things are very fluid in movement. So many a time, when there is variant opinions on a specific practice, Maran, which is Moreno Yosef Karo, will write in Shulchan Aruch, there are those who say this, and then there are those who say that. And there are those who say the third thing, and then those who say the fourth thing. So you look at that, you read it, so, gee whiz, what the heck are we supposed to do? And our tradition is yesh v'yesh, all right, holchim acharei yesh patra. We go after the final opinion. And I find that, of all things, Nick, pretty much I'll go by that opinion. Nick knows stuff. He does. He really does. He's a sweetheart of a guy. We were out, a bunch of us, as I said, from Ancient Aliens. Dr. Travis Taylor was with us. Of course, David Childress, William Henry, Nick and myself. And, we're all friends. We all get along. We all come from different, varied points of view. But, we love to get together and talk shop. But here we are now to talk shop. And we're at Hanukkah. Our world around us is in such a fundamental... what should I say? I've been talking about this stuff for 20 years, for those of you who don't know. I've warned that this was going to happen years and years ago. Matter of fact, a friend of mine just reminded me today. He says, Rabbi, do you realize 20 years ago you said about 2020? And I said, no. I'm supposed to remember conversations I had 20 years ago. It reminds me of something rather humorous. Here at Facebook, I very rarely like to censor any kind of opinions and stuff like that. I'm not with the big, politically correct way to censor everything. I let people get weird. I don't mind that. But what I do mind very much, and for those of you who are watching this on Facebook, and even on YouTube, you should know, all right? I will not tolerate insults, arguments and fights, and especially lies and BS. I'm not going to tolerate that. No. All right? You got something to say that's weird, You want to put out, or, deviant, weirdo opinions away from Torah and stuff like that. As long as you don't contradict and offend, hey, knock yourself out. But some weirdo guy claims, made some weirdo claims about me. If you look at my Facebook comments there, you see it. I didn't erase it. He says, do you remember, Rabbi, 28 years ago, we had a conversation. 28 years. I'm supposed to remember a conversation from 28 years ago. I don't remember what I had for lunch 28 days ago. I'm supposed to. And then he made some wild, weird claims. I said, man, I don't know where you're coming from, boy. Weirdo stuff. But anyway, you got a lot of weirdo stuff out there. We got a lot of what we have now become so familiar with as fake news. And this is our problem, because we have become so inundated in this social media world of ours that we don't know. We blur the difference between not only holy and the profane, the right and the wrong, the good and the bad. Now we've lost contact with what is and what isn't reality. The COVID virus is real. It's out there. People dying. We know that. It's certainly not the Spanish flu of a century ago. It's certainly not the bubonic plague of centuries ago. But it's serious. We should never, ever discount that. That's for sure. But with that being said, I'm not so much worried about the virus. I'm worried about the ramifications of global social shifts. The whole ideas of the lockdowns, as you know, have devastated the global economies. And this is only the beginning of the eruption of a terrible volcano of problems, an earthquake, which is going to shatter things. Hear me now. And if I'm being alarmist, well, then so be it. 2020 is going to be remembered as a walk in the park compared to 2021. You have no idea what's coming down the pike. With that being said, let's go and look at some of these things that are happening all around us. Oh, by the way, this is a Hanukkah class. Oh, yes, and everything that we're talking about, you're going to see, is going to point right back to Hanukkah. Let the rabbi work my little wisdom here, and you'll follow along. See what's happening now. The economy, we recognize what's going to happen. There's going to be payback. It's going to happen. One way or another, we'll get through it. But you know what I'm more concerned about? The societal response. We're taught social distancing. Do you see how people are responding if you don't wear a mask in public? How people are treating one another? How they're turning on one another? Just like the Hitler Youth used to do in Nazi Germany. People are no longer of the mentality, I am my brother's keeper. If anything, the mentality today is, I am my brother's accuser. I'm a good guy if I point you out. That is a dangerous division. Remember the old saying, united we stand and divided we fall. If I was an enemy of the United States of America and I wanted to plot a long-term plan to destroy the nation from within, I would corrupt everything about the country that made it strong and great and proud. And that's exactly what is happening. Everything that made this country good and great and proud is under attack. Families destroyed. Sense of camaraderie, dead. Even the concept of the strong, rugged male is now toxic masculinity. And I have seen websites advertising dresses for women, makeup for men, dresses for men, makeup for men, and all. And this is only going to be pushed by a continuous, in quote, social progressive agenda. But what's behind it all? Answer: the emasculation, the death, and the destruction of masculinity. Now you might say, well, your toxic masculinity is a bad thing. Look at these bad tough guys. Yeah, let's get rid of them all. Yeah. Okay. Let me give you a little Kabbalah teaching here. For those of you who are not familiar with the teachings of the Torah of the Ariel, and we speak about what we call the ultimate yichud, right? Why are we where we're at right now? Adam. I cover this in a lot of the materials that I cover in the classes on the 8 gates of the Ari, the whole big course, like 40 hours of classes, if you're interested in that. My Ultra Chaim class teaches about that. I have my new book coming out, which is all my essays on the Seder HaHishtalshalut, the evolution of things in, the Torah, the Kabbalah. And I've decided I'm calling it the evolution of God. And if you don't like that, too bad, because that's what Seder HaHishtalshalut is, emanations. We're not going to talk about theory. My new book will talk about practice. As you'll see, it'll be hopefully available within the next few weeks. But getting back to this, we are taught that in the primordial worlds of the fall of the primordial kings, we speak about, the world called the Akudim. Don't worry about all the details. I'm just giving you a filler here. We spoke about, from the Ari, from the Zohar, the lights that emanated originally from the ears and the nose and the mouth of Adam Kadmon, that formed what we call the world of the Akudim, the bound, and then the lights emanated from the eyes and gazed down upon the body. And those were the lights called the Nikudim, and they were the lights of the Sag, which is the primordial female. And because they were imbalanced by not being in proper alignment with the male, the primordial kings, which we really should have called the primordial queens, fell, the shattering of the vessels. Now, the big secret is what came next. It's called the light of the forehead. The light of the forehead was called the male light, the Ma Chadash. And it was the male that came and elevated the fallen female, thus completing the name of Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke. Yeah, I know I'm not getting into all the details. This is like 40 hours of lessons out of the Kitvei Ari, and I'm giving you to 40 seconds? Okay, so I'll try my best here. But understand what the metaphors are saying, that the ultimate and original order of balance in the universe is what the Chinese would call, I could quote them, yin and yang. We call it in our Kabbalah Ma and Ben, or Tiferet and Malchut, or Za and Nok. This is the secret of the balance and the harmony of male and female in perfect union. And the powers that be in our society must have some type of energetic wisdom, because they're seeking to divide and split that, causing the collapse of the male, which will again lead to the collapse of the female, leading to the destruction of the world. And I think when I look around, I see it happening. And more so, I think you see it too. So you see, all this Kabbalah talk, all of this deep theoretical, philosophical, metaphysical Kabbalah stuff is real. But you must be able to see it and understand it within the context of everything of the world that's real around us. Escaping into the realm of virtual reality with all of our computer games and the like. Okay, how many of us now, maybe not so much from my generation, but you younger folks, how many of you wasted hours and hours and hours playing video games? I know my boy has, right? I remember when he was growing up, Call of Duty was the big game. And I remember he showed it to me, and I played one or two of the games. You do hours and hours and hours of this stuff, and you're a complete other reality. Now, they are creating a virtual reality. The helmets they put on your head, they'll tap right into your brain. You put that on, and you won't be able to tell the difference between the inside world and the outside world. Kind of like the Matrix. And the more and more this is becoming real, because we are becoming more and more isolated from other people, that we don't give a damn about them. We are more and more becoming afraid to not walk the party line. We are told that this is the way things are supposed to be. And in the words of Dr. Fauci, just do as you're told. Reminds me of the wise words, almost prophetic maybe, that George Orwell, remember 1984, wrote in his book Animal Farm, which was a story of how the animals took over the farm. And it shows how one set of animals then became the leaders. And the statement that they made was, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Look at what's happening in our world today. You don't see a hand here. You don't see an agenda here. Going back to where we began with General Eshett, why on earth would he come out with such an earth-shattering revelation? Because he wants to sell a book? Really? You know what? If I'm the head of NASA and I want to sell a book about, whatever, the last thing in the world I think I would do is say, oh yeah, my book's all about aliens. Somehow, I don't think that's going to lead to the popularization of the book for most, judging from the mockery the general is experiencing. It would be a deterrent. So with all due respect to Nick, now, not to sell a book. Nothing was lost in translation. I got the original Yedioth Ahronoth article. I read what he wrote. And I'll tell you this, he's not the only one to know this. But here's the question. You just don't reveal stuff like this. What do you think? He just woke up and said, I'm having an interview today. Oh, by the way, let me reveal to you secrets which have been kept above top secret, MJ-12 level, for the past 70 years. And I just, what the heck, I'll just throw it out in an interview. Really? I don't think so. Obviously, something is behind it. And I certainly don't know. I do not know General Eshett, but I recognize something's behind it. Years ago, before he died, Colonel Philip Corso wrote the book The Day After Roswell. All right? This is the guy who took the reverse engineered technology from the Roswell crashes and jobbed it out to all of modern industry. These are top-notch military people. They're not BSing you. Why is this not all over? The answer? Oh, it is. It's on the channel for entertainment. Then after the entertainment value is gone, we change the channel. It reminds me of the end of that movie that came out many, many years ago called The Truman Show with the comedian Jim Carrey. Pretty much it was a quick story about a guy who was actually bought by a television station, Syria or whatever, when he was a child. And his entire life was filmed, and it became a TV show, 24/7. And he had no idea that absolutely everything in his life was a complete lie. Well, story goes, at the end of the show, he becomes aware that it's all BS, it's all a lie, and it's all caught on camera. Everybody around the world is watching it. And the last scene, he says, all right, I'm out of here, I'm going, goodbye. And he leaves. And the show, after being on for like 30 years, goes off the air. Now, the last scene of that film I thought was so profound because it shows what people did. How did they respond to the end of this 30-year show? They just changed the channel and went on to something else. That's pretty much where today. We have been trained, mind control trained. Your attention span is only so small. I've been told, right? When I speak, when I write, I have to, bam, get your attention right away or you're gone. Really? Well, you want to know something? In that bam second, I'm not interested in getting you. If you don't have a long enough attention span to stay connected, you're never going to get the message anyway. So I'll share with you something here about our KosherTorah School. As you very well know, our KosherTorah School is open. Everybody wants to come and study. Everybody's always welcome. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you are. I don't care how weird you are or whatever. Everyone's here. Welcome to study. But the course of study is not going to be subject to compromise or change or political correctness. Here you're going to get an authentic and an authoritative, bona fide, Orthodox Jewish Torah experience of the schools of the Maaseh Merkavah, the prophetic Kabbalah, and even the Kabbalah Ma'asit. Some like to call that magic, but I don't like that word, so I never use it. Now, that's what you're going to get here from all the bona fide sources. You might like it, you might not like it. It's going to tell you things that you might agree with and you might not agree with. Oh well, but I'm going to let you see it for yourself. I'm going to show it to you so that you can see with your own eyes. Now, there is something very deeply wrong with our world today. I use the words of Star Wars, right? There's a deep disturbance in the Force. And as I promoted tonight's class, sent out the notice what it's going to be about, I spoke about this universal agenda. There seems to be a new world agenda. And if you look in the realm of spirituality, look at what the message really is. The message is, hey, remember old Rodney King? Remember? Can't we all just get along? Can't we all just put away all of our differences and hug and love and embrace one another and kumbaya? We're not all so different. Like, we're all looking for truth, and all paths of truth are equally subjective and not true. So therefore, we're all in the same boat. And no matter what path you might choose, it's as equal and good as any other path, as long as you're happy with it. And as long as you find peace, and we can all just get along. Well, that's what's being taught. And in the wise words of King Solomon, Ein kol hadash tachat hashemesh. Nothing new under the sun, because that universal spirit of kumbaya, love, embrace, and acceptance for everyone, that's exactly what the Greek Seleucid context was in the days of the Hanukkah Civil War. You see, understand the history of the time. Just like today, whether it's Israel, the United States, Europe, there is a war between those who are the traditional religionists, and I'm not so much talking about theology and doctrine, I'm talking about morals and values, like families, husbands and wives, all right, children, all that other kind of stuff, versus all this other kind of new forms for whatever they're worth. This conflict that we have in our society today, nothing new. This is what was 2,200 years ago. In ancient Israel, you had the Seleucid overlord, who was the equivalent of, let's say, the influence of a European and or American government influence in Israel. And most of Israel in the day were secular. Well, it's okay if you are secular in your own domain, but you're not supposed to come into the domain of the religious and say, you know what? You got to join us. We all got to be one. We all got to be the same. All versions and ways of understanding God are all alike. God, Hashem, yeah, that's Zeus. It's the same God. It's the same God as the ones of the Egyptians and the Hindus and the Buddhists. It's all the same. So what difference does it make whether you're offering a sacrifice to Zeus or to Yahweh? They're the same. Come on, it's psychological archetypes. It's the creator. And I know you can argue with me the point, right? Malachi chapter 1, verse 11, God does not hold back the mistake of the intellect from those people who do idolatry. Got that. But you don't impose that on others. You see, even Judaism learned a terrible lesson of imposition. Christianity, of course, for centuries imposes itself, as does now Islam. They've been duking it out with each other forever. And again, end of days prophecy is they're going to duke it out to the bitter end. But here we are now in another battle between the secular and the religious. And look, there's a lot of good stuff in secular society. We all know that. There's a lot of good stuff in religious society. We all know that. We're not looking at the value of the good here or there. We're looking at what's bad and how we endeavor, those in power that be, to impose their will because we know better than you. And you stupid, ignorant, old-fashioned, dumb, blah, blah, blahs. What is wrong with you, sick, stupid? How could you believe that crazy, dumb, stupid stuff? Right? Aliens. Puh. Religion. Puh. God. Puh. Right? Your old-fashioned morals. Puh. Become normal. Become modern. And if you won't do it, we will impose it on you for your own good. You've heard that political agenda before? Maccabees certainly did. That was what was going on in ancient Israel. And the vast majority of the religious left the secular, say, you go over there, you do your stuff, we're going to go over here, we're going to do our stuff. But that wasn't good enough for the secular, the Hellenist. They endeavored to impose. So they went in to the temple on the day of universal brotherhood, the Saturnalia, which is a natural, an expression of things in nature, this cycle of the sun, the rebirth, the winter solstice. It's a natural day. The Greeks observed it, it's universal. So they said, Jews, come on, observe it. Well, we're going to put in a statue of Zeus, because Zeus is Hashem. It's all the same. You could sacrifice a pig or a cow. It doesn't matter. It's all going to the same loving source. And you got to understand this, you ignorant, backwards so-and-sos. And so, on the Saturnalia, they imposed their order on the temple. Oh, that's not nice. And then they went around the country, from town to town to town, that says, come on, embrace the new brotherhood. And the story is recorded in the book of Maccabees. One of the guys in town says, cool, man, hey, I'm with it. Peace, love, brotherhood, and all the rest. And he went up there to offer his pig sacrifice. And good old Matityahu, the old Kohen, said, oh, no, none of this. And that, you know what he did? He did an act of violence. Terrible toxic masculinity as it was. Killed the guy. Then killed the Greek. That's murder. Authorities come after. That started the Civil War. And the act of Hanukkah was a civil war. Don't you doubt it. They fought long and hard. The religious finally got the upper hand. And they finally, 3 years later, reconquered the temple in Jerusalem. But it wasn't Ian Kislev like you think. They actually reconquered the temple. I think it was in Heshbon or something. Read the book of Maccabees. They'll tell you. They just had missed the 8-day celebration of Sukkot. Now, so they wanted to wait and dedicate the temple anew on the Saturnalia as a specific statement to the Greeks. Hey, you defiled our temple on your day, we're rededicating it on your day to give you a... So there you go. And if you look at the prayer that we recite in the Al Hanisim, and we recite the prayer in our Amidah and Berchat Hamazon every day during Hanukkah, there's no mention of this miracle of the oil. The Gemara mentions it. That's a later story. And even though the Gemara mentions it, and all my peers are going to consider what I'm saying sacrilege, I consider it more of a midrashic than a historical event. It wasn't recorded in the book of Maccabees, was not recorded in Josephus. There's no record of it in any of the historical stories. The real miracle here was that the people of old religion said enough was enough, and they fought back. And with great sacrifice and effort, they won. And that's the miracle of Hanukkah. That's the story of Hanukkah. And if you look where we're at right now, we're at a point where, again, you have the two sides which are so hostile. Years and years, people have said, oh, we need a secession, we need a civil war. But that used to be fringe talk that no one bothered to take seriously. Today, it's mainstream. on both sides everywhere. That's dangerous stuff. But there's a new world order. There's an agenda out there. Space Federation? Well, if there is a Space Federation, who are they working with? If there is an agenda, who's doing what with whom? Now, we can all point the finger at all the different people who are controlling the global world. Those who are in control of the media, and those who are in control of the money, and those who are in control of this, and those who are in control of that. Thank God. If you look at all the players, you can recognize they're not Jews, so you can't have a Jewish conspiracy here. Yeah. We lucked out of this one, thank God. It's not us. But somehow, somewhere, I mean, look what's going on. Look what's happening with the YouTubes and the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Microsoft and the Amazon and all this. And you go, what on earth? Something's happening. Let's wax, I don't know. I was about to say let's make up a story, but I don't know how made up it is or not. Let's say, for an example, maybe true, maybe not, that there really is a, in quote, cabal of people, human beings just like you and me, who have the power, who are in control, and have an agenda to shift the world society. Maybe they call it the reboot of capitalism, which is probably another word for Marxism or communism, or a new world order. Fine. Let's, for argument's sake, say that there is this new world agenda. Fine. Who's behind it? Who knows? Don't go pointing to the guys who are running all these big companies, because in all due respect, where did they get such brilliance that they could have such global wisdom to create a new world? Gee whiz. Obviously, they must be taking their marching orders from someone higher. And here is where we get rather scary. Because again, got to go back to the Bible. Book of Daniel, chapter 4, 14. I discuss all of this in detail in visions. If you've not gotten yet my new book at Amazon.com, it's there for you. I discussed a lot of this stuff in there, and you might want to see the background material. The Watchers. They are, let's be blunt, extraterrestrials. What does that mean? People say, there are no such things, extraterrestrials. Well, the Bible says they're extraterrestrials. So if you want to contradict the Bible, okay, cool, groovy. You go believe whatever you want. Now, where does the Bible say that? Well, we talk about entities who are called angels. Remember, like Michael, Gabriel, all those other guys? Those weirdo cherubim and chayot that Ezekiel saw, right? They're not of this earth. And if they're not of this earth, that means they are not terrestrial beings, which means they're extraterrestrial beings. We have a myth, a fantasy, that we think angels are these little hot, sexy little blonde babes with the robes, with the little wings that you see, the little statues that they sell in the mall stores. Even Robin, he's cracking up about that one. I wrote about this, aliens, angels, and demons. You have to dispel all this fantasy, guys. We're dealing with real entities. Some of them, I agree. There are interdimensional from other places. They come down from a fourth dimension to the third dimension. But that's all. Now get this. Technology. The Merkava, in all due respect to my dear colleague Eric von Daniken. Yes, Eric, it really was a transportation device. But at the same time, it was not a flying saucer, and the people or whatever was on it wasn't like human beings of flesh and blood, just like you and me. Very, very different. You got it half right. All right? And Eric, I've read a lot of his books. We've had chats, at alien cons and stuff, and he knows a lot more than what you would think. I have to give him credit for that. And he's also a believer in God. You should know. But aside from all that, look at agendas. The Watchers, by the hand of God, I said Daniel chapter 4. They're the ones who are in charge of what's happening here. Let me tell you something about these Watchers. Don't think that they're nice guys. They're not. Just like the book of Isaiah, chapter 55 says, 45, verse 7, where in which God says, right, I am the author of both day and night, good and evil, light and darkness. I, Hashem, make it all. There is no good versus evil duking it out. There is no God versus the devil. That's a myth. They're both sides being played by the center. When the watchers want to manipulate and guide human destiny, as the Bible makes very clear, they raise up kings and they knock them down. So, I'm going to wax very, very dangerous here. If Mr. Trump truly and sincerely won the 2020 presidential election, but the watchers would choose otherwise, then it would be by their power that all of the vote changing and manipulations and lyings and whatever else would rob him of that victory, because so it would be ordained by heaven. I don't know if any of that is really what has happened or not, but just like with King Nebuchadnezzar in ancient Babel, he was at the top of his game, right? And the Malachim says, I don't think so. Bam. They struck him like they do through the power of the psychic ability. And they hit him with the worst plague of all, psychosis. And they twisted his mind. That's their power. They can twist the minds of human beings, which means obviously they communicate. Now, these are the watchers. Book of Daniel, chapter 4, verse 14. That's what the Bible says. I don't make this stuff up. You go read it for yourself. So if there's an agenda out here for a new world order, you could rest assured of one thing. Me'et Hashem haytazot. This is coming from God. All right? Now you could say, well, if it's from God, I shouldn't resist it, should I? Well, let me just tell you something else about what the watchers do. They're the ones who sent the bubonic plague, the Justinian plague. They're the ones who manipulated and coordinated the 20th century with the rise of Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Mao Zedong, and were pretty much responsible for the wiping out and murder of, 250 million human beings over a period of a century? Yeah. So when you talk about the watchers, I don't really look at them as being like the most nicest guys who I want to chum around with and, share a pizza for lunch. All right? They have a very different agenda towards humanity because they see our planet and us in a very different light. You see, we look at our lives as being so insignificant and finite. Right? You were born, you live, you die. That's all you know. My gosh. Do you realize what each of us is like? Each of us is like a ping pong ball of light. From the eyes of the watchers, right? There is a psychic barrier around our world. And our souls come down into this world for a sake of what we call tikkun. Remember that Tiferet, Malchut, Man, Ben, Zad, Nok, yin and yang, balance, harmony. That's what, old religion is supposed to teach us. And we come into this world, we learn what we do, and then we go back up. And whatever was rectified stays up, whatever didn't comes back down. So we're going up and down, up and down, up and down, like a frequency modulation. Or like a ping pong ball going back and forth. That's how our souls are bouncing back and forth. Well, the watchers see the whole scheme of these things. So the one in and out of one ray of the frequency of a modulation, which is our one human lifetime, I don't really care too much about it all. It's insignificant in their eyes, even though it's everything in our significance. They see things differently than we do, as does God, Isaiah chapter 55. So they're working in our society today is viewed in a very different way. If they want to corrupt the world, change the world, manipulate the world, like that, they do it. And your prayers and mine aren't going to change the agenda any more than your prayers and mine would have changed the agenda in Germany in 1938. If you had enough brains in your head and you saw what was coming down the pike, living in Germany, Austria, or other areas of Europe, you would say, you know something? I don't like what the Watchers have planned. I think I'm going to go way out of their plan over there. And the people got the heck out. Well, the Watchers have their plan right now, and they're in communication with whoever they're in communication with. Rest assured, that's a pretty powerful opposition to have to face. The Zohar gives us very wise advice what to do under circumstances like this. It says that when the Malach HaMashchit, the angel of destruction, is let loose, it has authority and power to strike left and right. Now, in the book of Ezekiel, you will see that the righteous are marked with a big letter Tav on their forehead. And the Tav in biblical times is an X. For those of you with psychic vision, you can gaze and you can see people who have like energy coming out, which would mean that they're marked for protection. But marked for protection doesn't mean that you act with arrogant disregard for danger, right? God's blessed me. I'm marked for protection. So you know what? To prove to y'all how protected I am, I'm going to go downtown Knoxville, go to the top of the 20-story building. I'm going to jump off, right? Because it says in the Bible, Ki malacha bitzebelach, yishmarcha b'kol darkecha. His angels will guide you and protect you in all your ways. They will prevent you from harm. All right, so I'm going to go jump off the building. We're quoting Psalms. Yeah, you'll read about it the next day, how I died when I splattered on the sidewalk there. That's not what it means. And therefore, that type of false faith must be dispelled. Real faith is that you trust in God, in Benjamin Franklin's style. God helps those who help themselves. We know that we're in difficult times. There's no doubt about it. We can see an agenda coming down the pike. We can see an onslaught of secularism, which isn't tolerant of religion, but on the contrary is intolerant of religion, to the point where it's already squeezing the religious, trying to make their lives miserable because their morals and values are completely disregarded. Now, look for the examples of closed downs here in the United States of America, in which large public gatherings of certain types were allowed, whereas religious gatherings were not. Well, who really needs religion anyway? Well, I guess people who consider themselves religious do. Well, it's dangerous. Yeah, okay, we have social distancing, we have masks, we have all that. Right? The Rabbanit will tell you, we don't lock ourselves up in the house. We go out and we have, agendas and errands and shopping we have to do. And we're here in Knoxville, we do have a city mandate to wear the masks, and we wear masks. Why not? Wearing a mask is not a statement of the stripping of my freedom. All right? I wear a mask. Does it really help? I'm not so sure it does. I'm not so sure it doesn't. But you know something? In Torah language, I think like a rabbi, right? We have a question, a safek, which means a doubt. Is it something serious? It's very serious. So if it's a safek with something serious, you take the benefit of the doubt and you wear the mask, whatever, right? The Rabbanit knows it. I still go to the gym, right? I'm an avid gym goer. I go to Gold's Gym. And when I go to the gym, I have a pack here. I'll show you. I have my package of like little wipes. I wipe down the machines, and I have the little sanitizer here, and I always wash my hands because you never know. Am I being extreme and ridiculous? Maybe I am. But that doesn't matter. I'm doing what needs to be done for now. And thank God, I haven't gotten sick. I don't know. This is a virus they say that you can't even know. Sometimes you don't even know if you have it. supposed to know I'm sick? I don't have no symptoms. I have to take a test to tell me that I'm sick? Okay. And the vaccination? I'm not even going to go there. My goodness. Are they going to impose a vaccination? I could see that happening. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I guess that's a matter of opinion. You're going to ask me my opinion? What difference does my opinion make? If you feel like you should get a vaccine, you go get a vaccine. If you feel like you shouldn't, I guess that's your business. But remember, there's going to be social pressures because the rule of the day, the new world order, in the words of Dr. Fauci, is it's time for you to do what you are told. Because remember, in the words of George Orwell, all animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others. So there's an agenda in this world, and there's stuff going on. And with everything going on, with the COVID, with the lockdowns, with the economic upheavals, with the crisis in American politics and society, and its echoes throughout the world, and the dangers of Chinese aggression, and Russian stuff, and American stuff, and everything's going on in every which way. It's enough to confuse anybody. And out of the middle of all of this, an Israeli head of the equivalent of NASA says, oh yeah, we've been working with the Space Galactic Federation for decades already, and we all know it, and we're all getting along, and we're doing fine. Oh, really? And of course, it's a whole bunch of nonsense and stupid stuff, because no one believes in aliens, right? Okay. There are no aliens. There's no nothing. Okay. I guess there's nothing. If there's nothing, then there's nothing. And if there is nothing, then you want to know something, I'm going to be done in about 5-10 minutes here. And you can go change the channel to another entertaining story, just like, at the end of the Truman Show. And life goes on. Or maybe there really is something happening. And I think maybe we need to pay attention. In a previous class, as you know, I taught about the Shviti against, or I should say, for the protection against demons. And we discussed that those entities are real. By the way, the demonic entities, those aren't the Watchers. The Watchers work for God, okay? The Shedim and stuff, they're more like the animalistic, things. They're like spiritual animals kind of stuff. So don't look at them as the same. They're not trusted in the same way. Not all Shedim are bad, but I'm not going to get into that right now. The point is, we are at war. And the war, and I wrote about this recently. I published this through KosherTorah.com. If you're not on our KosherTorah.com email list, you might want to get on it. And of course, if you want to get the deeper stuff and become a contributing, supporting student, we ask for a gift of $50 a month if you're capable of doing that. And I give you all kinds of good stuff. Well, but unlike many of my other peers who like to, promote and do business, I don't. I'm here to teach. What's out there. You go check it out. You see for yourself. I trust God will provide. But with that being said, okay, something's going down. Y'all know it. We're at war. And in the few minutes we have left, I'm going to tell you how to fight this war. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to win this war with bullets and guns. No. The powers that be are far bigger and far better than you. You want to go and build your bunker? Knock yourself out. If you have millions of dollars and you want to build yourself the equivalent of like an old English French castle, surrounded with a moat, put alligators in there just for the heck of it. Surround yourself with 50 caliber machine guns with an army of your best trained militia guys. All right? You hear about all the militias growing. You know how easy it is to take out an entire militia? I don't care if you got 200 people. If they gather together in a single spot, boom, they're gone. Drone strike, just like Afghanistan and Iraq. Boom, they're gone. Okay? So don't think you got power. You don't. Now, what about everything else? In modern times, anyone who is out there in the social media pontificating their dangerous and violent views, you don't think that you're being monitored, noticed? at any time, way that, in quote, powers that be want to shut you down, no, they're not going to wait for you to be armed and waiting for them to come after you with a SWAT team. No. Eventually, you're going to have to go to work. Eventually, you're going to go out shopping at Walmart. And all they're going to do is stop you on the road. Boom, you're gone. Remember the whole situation with the Bundys, who had the ranch situation out west? Right? Learn a lesson from the real world in which we live. This is not the way that you will win a war. We fight wars with psychic ability. We fight wars with the power of mind. Just like the Watchers do, we equally do. Because they can project their thoughts into us, just like the little Greys were projecting thoughts into people's heads back in Roswell. Well, we know how to do that too. And we've been doing it since the days of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Jacob was a real good one when he did it against his brother Esau. We learned about that in a recent Torah portion. Well, this is part and parcel of the Maaseh Merkavah, prophetic Kabbalah teachings about meditation, projecting positivity that each and every one of us can do. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be Jewish or Gentile or whatever you are. I don't care if you're an alien. Who cares? All right? Men, women, Tana de Eliyahu stuff, right? If you want to make a difference in this world today, you become a psychic warrior. Recognize the reality of what's happening around us. Recognize there's only so much you can physically do about it. But psychically, you can become a source of super psychic power with intense focus on God, intense focus on righteousness, the columns of the Sefirot, the pattern of the 10 Sefirot you project as an energetic alignment into the collective whole. One class I have to give is the Kabbalistic projection through the words Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, the foundation of our Torah faith. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. It is a psychic call of a projection of psychic energy with a message. I really have to give a class in that. I don't have time to get into it right now. But for those of you who know my KosherTorah School well enough, and you see the teachings that we have, our videos here, Facebook, YouTube, all the literature that's available for free, as well as all the audio that's free on KosherTorah.com, all the courses that we have available for you, my books on Amazon. Remember, you put this all together, and you will experience for yourself the power that you as an individual have. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how young you are. I don't care how healthy you are. I don't care how sick you are. None of that matters. When you focus your mind and you fight the good fight, you recognize the agenda of all those who are seeking to create imbalance, and you might not be able to engage this in social media. No, that's wrong. This is the right way. People will shut you down. They shut down General Eshet, the head of the Israeli equivalent of NASA, a brigadier general, a man who knows. And still people, what does he know? He's an idiot. Okay. Yeah. Can you imagine if God himself spoke from heaven today? All right, for real, no joke. God spoke, I am the Lord, I'm speaking. People would say, you're not the Lord, shut up. No one would listen. That's arrogance. That's the denial. Okay? You're not going to reach people from external communication. The influence comes from within. Learn from the Watchers. Learn from God. Learn from our Torah. Learn from our rabbis. Learn from our sages. This is everything that my KosherTorah School is here. So it's no longer my school, but our school. I'm not going to tolerate nonsense from crazy people, but I'm going to give you the experience of truth if you're willing to receive it. And that, I guess, we'll conclude with. Remember I said when I began, I have no idea what I was going to talk about, no idea, no notes, no nothing. Just let it flow. Well, there you go. There's the flow. That's what's happened. That's what's out there. We have a war to fight, and every one of us is a soldier. And every one of us has the weapons that we need to fight this battle. And if you don't, you go to Kosher Torah, you'll find what you need. And I'm always here for you. Be wise. Be smart. Fight this battle the way it needs to be fought, because the watchers are watching. No, they'll challenge you. Oh, yes, they will. Just like the angel challenged Jacob. But you prove yourself like Jacob to master, you will overcome even the watchers and merit the term Yisrael, those who fight with the angels and win. And that can be you. Make it so. Ariel Tzadok, KosherTorah School, KosherTorah.com, at your service. God's blessings. Stay safe. Enjoy the lights of Hanukkah. The light of Hanukkah is the message of freedom. What we just talked about is real freedom. That's what the Maccabees did. You do it too. God bless.